Since we've never met in person, I'd like that very much if they could introduce themselves and say just a little bit about your role in the newspaper.
Yeah, for sure. Well, for anyone who doesn't know me or hasn't spoken to me before, my name is Nicole. I'm the environment reporter with the Fort Worth Report. I'm still fairly new. I've been there since September, but I've enjoyed it a lot, and it's been such a journey. It honestly feels longer than those 6, 7 months that I've been there so far. And just like I was telling Grace earlier, I have a background in journalism. I studied journalism and creative writing at the University of Texas at El Paso. And I also worked for other news publications such as the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. I worked for KTSM Channel 9 News in El Paso, and I also worked for the USA Today Network. So, yeah, my work primarily is in journalism, reporting, and yeah, that's basically what I do.
And you enjoy it, obviously, and
Yeah.
you're so far, I think you're very good at it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Yes.
Uh, John, what about you?
Yeah, I'm John Greer. I'm the audience director at Fort Worth Report. I've been there. We had our fourth birthday recently. I've been there not quite all 4 years, about three and a half. And kind of my role is listening to our audience, getting our stories out to our audience across, different platforms from the website to newsletters to however people are finding news, and then just trying to make sure people are reading all the great stories that reporters like Nicole are publishing.
May I ask, how many outlets do you have other than digital and do you have actually a print paper?
We're all digital, so we have the websites. We have fortworthreport.org and arlingtonreport.org, and then we also have several different newsletters. We have our normal Fort Worth Report daily newsletters, and then we have an Arlington Report, which comes out once a week, and we have the Green Report, which is Nicole's monthly newsletter of just environmental stories.
And those are distributed online through email? Or
Yes, those are all email. Um, so anyone can sign up on our website. Um, and then we post our stories on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, places like that. And then there are other like apps that we try to get into, like Apple News for people that use that.
Mm.
Um, so anywhere online we try to be, but no, we since we're only 4 years old, we just opted to go straight digital and no paper at all.
Well, we as environmentalists we like that because no trees are being cut for wood pulp for for paper. So it's fine. And I love digital stuff. It's so convenient and seems a lot more sustainable in the long run. But how did you I'm sorry, Nicole, I have lots of questions for you, but how did you get into this, John? I mean, how did you get where you are now?
My background is actually more marketing rather than reporting or journalism. I went to UT Austin for marketing, and then I've been in Fort Worth at local marketing agencies mostly since then, and then saw the chance to join the Fort Worth Report, and I've been there since.
Can you tell us a little bit about the model of unbiased journalism, not paid by corporations?
Yeah, yeah. So we are a little different than the traditional legacy newspapers in that we are fully a nonprofit. There's no part of that is there's no subscription fee to read us. However you're getting us, make it so that everyone in the community can read us and for free.
But you don't have ads either.
We have we have sponsors, but generally we don't have the number of ads that the traditional news outlets do. But we are supported by our donors, our kind of individual members and foundations that give to us, and then we do have some sponsorships that help us, as well as grants. We're always looking for grants to help us in different ways, either locally or nationally.
I went to a program where Chris Cover, your publisher is an editor-in-chief, I guess, was explaining about that business model, and all I could think was, it's so gutsy. I mean, it's such an adventure. Um, it was already a going concern before you joined, or were you part of the startup process? Were you there from the beginning?
We were about 6 months old when I joined, but that was the model when they launched. They decided they wanted to do uh, the nonprofit model, and they wanted to do the free for everyone to read, and also uh, nonpartisan. We also don't, include any partisan coverage or partisan opinions. Um, in part because we want to make sure we're reaching everybody and not, turning anyone off from
Sure.
that. But there has been kind of a movement nationally of as a lot of uh, local legacy newspapers have been in decline for years and years now. There are more startups like us that are trying this nonprofit model, um, knowing that journalism is a service, is a community service, and so we're trying to um, get people used to that idea and show that I think the community has really responded that this is definitely something that people care about.
It looks like it. It's just gutsy and risky, and my hat's off to both of you for taking the chance, because I mean, well, I needed to have some kind of security that I would be employed, and I had children to look after and all this stuff. So it was never an option. I needed a paycheck, a steady source. And in your case, you're doing great, and you're expanding because you're hoping to open an Arlington bureau, and maybe um, foresee anything beyond Tarrant County, or
Not beyond Tarrant County, but expanding within Tarrant County. So we're really kind of looking at Tarrant County as our kind of borders, the full, the full county. But there are, it's a county of over 2 million people. So
and it's very different. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
Northeast Tarrant County and Arlington and Kennedale, for instance, totally different um, in terms of not just politics, but attitudes and histories and everything. So
yeah.
anyway, this is I'm fascinated by what you guys do. It's very inspirational.
Of
Yeah,
course. Yeah. Thank you so much, Grace, for the kind words. And yeah, just to kind of piggyback off what John said, uh we are primarily focused on reporting within Tarrant County because we understand the importance of our residents having a local news source, meaning that we are dedicated to reporting on all things Tarrant County. You know, when you see these legacy papers, things can get a little bit muddy because then they start incorporating in some national news and it kind of takes away the focus from the community. So that's also why we're very honed in on Tarrant County because we want to make sure that we are the primary source of news for people who want to know what's going on in their community. So we're very happy to be able to provide that service and fill in the gaps as needed.
Well, personally, I seldom look beyond Arlington city limits because there's plenty to worry about and look over, look after here. But do you have any particular bent? Like, I don't mean that. As do you specialize in a particular aspect of the environment, like plants or land use, energy, um, anything that you find particularly interesting or challenging?
Definitely, yeah. That's a really good question because when it comes to the environment, the way I explain it to people is that to me, that's really an umbrella term because there is so much going on in the environment.
Absolutely.
I really like to report on all things, even some stuff that you don't see too much in the news, such as wildlife and habitat restoration and taking care of our natural prairies. But an issue that I constantly see coming up in Arlington and Fort Worth and throughout all of Tarrant County is land use and conservation
Absolutely.
as it relates to development. You know, we're seeing so much growth, so land use and conservation is a major issue. Also water issues such as water supply and water quality, that is a huge thing here. Also, as our population grows, because our local officials have to consider and think ahead about how are we going to be able to supply these people with the water that comes with that demand. We're also seeing a lot of issues come up in the energy sector, so oil and gas. And as you may know, that's a huge issue that we see in Arlington. A lot of big oil and gas are there, setting up shop, and we've also seen some of that happen in Fort Worth as well. So those are the main issues that I cover, but I do my best to also get to other issues that might not get as much coverage, such as plants and wildlife, vegetation, like mentioned earlier, habitat and prairie restoration. I also do a lot of reporting on parks and recreation, what's going on within that department, because people love their parks and people want to have access to them. And it's especially important in a time like this where we have so much development, that we have access to green space and open spaces. So that's what my reporting primarily focuses on.
John, how do you gauge this, I wouldn't say the success, but the reach of some of the stories? Do you have surveys or can you tell by how many people um, tuned in, sort of? How many hits you get? Uh, but is that a good gauge of readership, for lack of a better term? Um,
Yeah. So one advantage of being all digital is we can see a lot of what people are doing. We can see what stories they're looking at, how long they're looking at them, what the most read story of the day is. So that's really helpful for us to know, and lets us know that we're being seen out there. So we can see kind of counts of people that come to our website. We also look at the counts of our newsletter subscribers that we have, and in terms of letting us know, well, that's, you know, everyone that subscribes is another person that
Yeah.
we are reaching in the 2 million people in the county. So that is, growing that and growing the number of people reading us on our website are kind of goals that we are able to track and try and reach those goals. Although they're definitely not perfect. We know lots of people share our stories that we don't exactly see that they're doing it or they're talking about us. But I think that, a little bit from surveys and then just because we have so many reporters that are out in the community all the time is another way we hear, what people are thinking or reading. And that helps too.
We certainly need that kind of feedback from you too, because um, I mean, I react to a story and by usually reposting it or the link to it to my Facebook page. Um, do you have a way to track those forwarding actions? Is that
Usually
possible?
not. Yeah. So unless your Facebook is public, which most people's aren't, we usually actually don't know that uh, how what exactly is going on there. We can see a little bit, but a lot of that is hidden to us.
Well, be assured that I I do almost daily. Yeah. Um, well, sometimes it's very much Fort Worth, and I'm not quite interested in that. But um, how do you choose which stories to cover? I guess, Nicole, is that a fair question? Uh,
Uh,
are you just assigned the stories by your editor, or do they come through phone calls or readers' comments? Or I keep calling them readers. They're reading, but they're reading on screens, probably.
Yes. Yeah. No, so there are various outlets through which I find stories. Most of it comes from really just being engaged with our community groups, community leaders, residents, and also just closely following what's going on in the government sector in Fort Worth and in Arlington. So constantly checking up on city council agendas, what the Parks and Rec Advisory Board will be talking about what projects they have going on. I'm also really in close contact with the Fort Worth Botanic Garden, the Nature Center and Refuge, a lot of environmental groups, environmental activists, even residents who have maybe some concerns about what's happening in the community they live in as it relates to an environmental issue. So most of my story ideas really come from that. Um, and
Really?
yeah, so you're following all these issues, these agendas, these meetings, these events, and that's most of where my stories come from. I do have the occasional assignment from my editors, but most of the time it's, I see a council item or I see something that is spurring some controversy in the community, such as issues regarding environmental justice in underserved neighborhoods. Um, yeah, there's so much going on. So just closely following these organizations, also the Tarrant Regional Water District. There's always something to report on there. And also, as I continue to foster relationships with, sources, which includes residents, activists, local leaders and officials, they also send some information along to me, and then out of that grows a story, some reporting, some news gathering. So I get
Well,
your
I
idea.
hope we join that list.
Yes. No, yeah, we are very open to story tips and ideas. So anything you have, we would definitely consider and would love to add to our coverage.
How do you I don't know how to phrase this, but how do you check the accuracy of some of the information that you dig up, or that somebody's telling you something? I mean, how do you fact check, basically? Do you have a list of sources that you go to for each particular aspect of um, like
Definitely,
for
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So we do have pretty detailed process of fact checking as our stories go through editing. So most of our fact checking can be done by just doing some basic research. Oftentimes, though, if I feel like what I'm looking up online and what I'm reading about isn't sufficient enough, I'll just go ahead and maybe relay back with a source and just ask them, hey, can you just kind of clarify this one thing you mentioned? Or I'm also usually
Yeah.
in touch with a professor or expert of, some sort of issue or area of concentration and I'll say, hey, this source said X, Y, and Z. Is this true, or is this usually the case, or can you confirm or clarify? So really, if there's something that I need to check on, I will just go back to my source, wherever the information came from, and I'll also be doing a lot of my research as well. So,
You must be working a lot of nights.
well, yeah, a
It's
lot of
be
early morning.
timely. I guess you have to follow up on a story right away before everybody has heard about it through another source. So, um,
Yeah,
like
there.
Marvin Nichols, it's been all over. Um,
Mhm.
you're going to be going to the meeting on the 19th.
Yes, I do have it on my calendar, so you will see me there.
I'm on Region C. I'm part of that committee. And
Oh, okay.
yes, and there's another environmental representative. It's a 36 member committee, so we're totally diluted. But there's another guy there from Sierra Club. And what difference would it make if we voted against something? Just
Mhm.
um, everybody else is a water professional. But there's room for um, comments and suggestions and stuff. So I don't feel that my time there is totally wasted. But anyway, I'm very interested in water. I know they're like Dick and several of our members are very they're plant enthusiasts and they're avid gardeners, native plant people. So they're more interested in that. The environment is so vast. I mean, as a topic, like you said, it's an umbrella term, but it seems like you need to be an expert on everything, or you'll be doing homework forever on every story. Um, you
Yeah,
s-
yeah, no,
you
yeah,
do, I guess. You do homework
you're
all the time.
yeah, you're absolutely right. I do often find myself reading a lot. Sometimes maybe I'm reading a little bit more than I am reporting, and that's just because I really want to familiarize myself with an issue, especially when I'm reporting on some more technical things. And you see a lot of that in the energy sector, when we're
Yes.
reporting on oil and gas, nuclear energy. There's a lot of technical information that comes up in those topics. So I do spend a lot of time reading, researching. I also, thankfully, I have a lot of sources that will pass along some really helpful documents for me to read and go through. A lot of lengthy plans, official documents, government documents. But all of that, I also look at it as practice, and the more that I do it, the easier it becomes. And, that's really just part of my day to day as well, is just reading and not just in the environment, but a lot of journalists would agree with that. Whatever it is that they're covering, we have to be really insightful and just make sure we're putting out the right information. So a lot of that involves, our responsibility of reading and doing our research.
And I occasionally I've been a source, not often, but I- when your predecessor Haley was there, I know I talked to her several times, and Kaylee Broussard too. She's at KRA now. You know Kaylee?
Yes, yeah.
Uh, um, it as a layperson, I feel that I'm helping somehow because the environmental work is so frustrating. Uh, you know, and it can be wiped out, all the gains that you have painfully accumulated and anyway, it's every once in a while you need a shot in the arm, and the only way to do that is by helping um distribute the good news. And there is good news out there occasionally. So we feel that we're somehow contributing to that when we talk to journalists. And again, John, I think you've got the best job because
Mhm.
everybody should like what they're getting. I mean, they're getting such a good product, and it's all donation based. Now, do you accept donations from everybody, or do you have a list of donors? Or I mean, really,
Yeah,
the NRA?
you know,
You don't
we
draw a
haven't
line anywhere?
we it hasn't come up
Oh,
or that we've gotten a donation that we felt awkward about, but I
that just
suppose at
popped
some
into
point
my
that could
mind.
happen. Yeah, it's community members. So, and we take it from everybody in the community. Um, and then we do disclose our donors. We follow the editorial. We have an editorial independence policy that matches what a couple of journalism organizations have recommended, and we disclose every donor over a certain dollar amount on our website. Um,
Wow.
but yeah, we are always looking for people to give us money.
So are you a nonprofit? Is the report a 501c3?
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
And we post all of that on our website, the financial
Yeah.
documents that go with that.
I'm
Um,
sorry, I should have read that before I came. I skip over that and just go straight to the news, um, and the stories. Um, does anyone else have questions? Please jump in. Jamie, you probably have questions about PFAS.
Oh, yeah. Oh, PFAS. Nicole, what do you know about them? What are we reporting?
Well, as I'm sure you all have seen, that there's been a little bit of a PFAS scare happening in Johnson County. And it's even gained some federal attention, with, our representatives. And so much that we're also seeing some action at the legislative level. I'm not sure if you all are aware, but Helen Kerwin, who represents the Johnson County area, she's actually trying to file a bill that would require people who produce biosolids fertilizer to send tests of their product, and if it goes above a certain level of PFAS and other harmful chemicals, then they would have to pause or halt distribution on their product, and start from scratch so that it doesn't exceed a certain level. So we're seeing a lot of action being taken, not just in Johnson County, but they've starting to get some state officials involved into this issue and this conversation. And we also, not too long ago, the city of Fort Worth filed a lawsuit against the U.S. government, actually, its military, because of chemicals in products that were being used by the base, the Joint Base here in Fort Worth. So it's something that definitely has an effect. Wherever these products that are made out of these chemicals are being used. And that's just one part of the country, right? So there's so much more happening. But yeah, those are the latest developments, and I'm I'm still speaking with people out in Johnson County, so whenever there is more updates, and also in Fort Worth as well, as it relates to the lawsuit, you will definitely see some more coverage because we know
How
that's a big deal.
how confident are you in water treatment plants and them removing PFAS eventually? I know they probably can't right now, but is there a murmur of Fort Worth and Arlington water treatment plants trying to get it at the source so that the PFAS, I know that it's harming farmers and that's a huge problem, but it's also coming through our faucets into our homes. Is there a murmur out there of we can get this under control through water treatment?
So there definitely has been talk, such as more water treatment, especially from our local officials. Um, it that starts to become a really gray, muddy area, if lack for a better word, because most of our laws surrounding water quality and water treatment, are set by the Environmental Protection Agency, and even they don't have a set standard or limit for what's acceptable when it comes to PFAS. So I think if any action is going to be taken, it's very dependent on what the EPA says or what they establish. But even the EPA is still, in the preliminary stages of research. So it might take some time before we can see a little more action on being able to funnel those chemicals out of our water. It's just a really complicated issue.
Yeah, I understand that. And it's complicated too by the current administration, I think. So
Yeah.
in the meantime, maybe an article about filters, home filters for PFAS stuff that might be something that people would be interested in, because I know there are some home filters that can work, but anyway, yeah, it's a scary topic for me, at least. I don't know about anyone else. Um,
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for bringing that up. Me and my editors have actually spoken about that before about filtration systems and what people are doing in addition to the Fort Worth, city of Fort Worth and Arlington's water treatment plants. Are people taking additional measures? So that's definitely something we want to
yeah.
exactly. It's something we want to explore and we'll, you know, be speaking with residents to talk about what their concerns are and what they're doing about it, and also how city officials are responding as well.
Good. Yeah, the interesting thing to me was the Air Force Base, Carswell. I didn't realize that a lot of our PFAS come from like firefighting foam,
Yes.
things like that. And it's something that I imagine the planes flying in and out and the pollution that comes from that, but there are real issues that go beyond, anything that I could imagine. And then you start getting into just people dumping sludge and sewage, and it gets crazy. So a clear report on what PFAS are, where they come from, why DFW. I mean, not just Carswell, but also I would imagine the airport uh,
Mhm.
plays a role. Anyway, yeah, PFAS.
Yeah.
I just want to say, Ranjana had a couple of statements and a question in the chat. She mentioned that the Fort Worth report has added to her knowledge of local goings-on in many areas. And she also appreciates having steady coverage of the environmental issues, which is her particular interest. And then she said PFAS was used in fracking fluid in hundreds of gas wells in the Barnett, according to a PSR report. And she asked, is that on anyone's radar in government or in your reporting?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for pinging that, Marion. So we have done a lot of reporting on gas wells and the Barnett Shale, but I don't think we've had the opportunity to hone in on PFAS being used in fracking fluids. But that's definitely something I could, put on my to-do list and explore a little bit more. Thank you for bringing that to my attention, Ranjana. We're always happy to follow up with coverage.
Especially since they're adding new wells in East Arlington.
I wanted to update a little bit of that. I was at a meeting last week two meetings last week. One, I learned that Fort Worth is using reverse osmosis as their PFAS elimination or mitigation method. It's very expensive and they're only using it in a local controls, is a pilot study, and see if they can afford to go on at a larger scale. But also there was another meeting where somebody from the water utilities in Arlington spoke to us, and basically he didn't want to talk about PFAS at all because he said that it in Arlington all the tests showed that it hadn't reached critical concentrations yet. So and he just said when it becomes a problem, we'll let you know what we're doing, which I Well, anyway, that was the take. Just don't worry about it. We're on to it, but it's not a problem, so we'll let you know if it ever becomes one. Right now,
Yeah.
they're not studying it, they're not looking for it in particular, but anyway, that was it. I'll shut up.
No, no, yeah, thank you for adding that, Grace. Yeah, I do remember in the lawsuit that the city of Fort Worth filed against Lockheed and Carswell is that they said that as a result of the PFAS released by the firefighting foaming agent, that they're having to make more expenses on water treatment and filtering its water out because they said that it had a wide effect of contamination in the water supply. Of course, I don't necessarily have more information beyond that, but I do think that opens an opportunity for following up with city leaders to see what exactly they are doing about that, how much money they're spending, how much equipment they have, if it's doing anything, if it's helping. Um, so yeah, I forgot that that was in the lawsuit
Her
because
name is Stacy Walker, and
yes,
she's the director of water utilities for Fort Worth, and she will give you the straight story.
yeah, for
It's a
sure.
really good source.
And
Yeah.
by the way, Ranjana, put the link to that PSR report in the chat for those who are interested in downloading it.
Yeah, thank you, Marianne. Yeah, I see that right now. I'll definitely look into that and get to some reading sometime this week.
And Nicole, if you and John can put your contact information in the chat before we're finished, then people will know how to contact you, or how is the best way to contact you?
Definitely, yeah. So, you can either give me a phone call, text, or email. I'm pretty good with checking all of those channels of communication. So whatever works best for you, you can definitely just reach out. I will go ahead and add that in the chat as well.
Okay. I had another question. How do you relate to the Fort Worth Star Telegram, or do you, or is that a total separate? Are you all reporting the news totally separate? Or do you have a run in, or how does that work?
So it's funny because when I am out on assignment, I will run into, the occasional reporter from another news outlet, like maybe TV, Star Telegram as well. We follow a lot of similar issues. But it really just depends since we all have our own beats. For example, I cover the environment, right? So, and the Fort Worth Star Telegram doesn't have an environment reporter. So it's not really often when I see one of the reporters at the same event as I am. Um, and they are considered our competitors. So we do our best to break the news and to give Fort Worth the scoop whenever there's something big happening, and just with all of our coverage. So that's what that kind of looks like.
Um, today
Well,
there
there's
was
another question. Ellen asks, is anyone talking to the producers of PFAS to get them out of the environment?
Yes, a great question, Ellen. So I know as far as my conversations, I was speaking with Synagro. They're the company that produces the
And they
biosolids.
believe that she's been taking bribes and
Uh,
kickbacks from this guy, Peter Dow, CEO of Cogent Waste Solutions. His family sanitation business has
Good
come.
job. I'm sorry. Thank you. Um, so yeah, like I was saying, I had been speaking to Synagro, to kind of get their thoughts in response to the criticism. I'm not sure if our city officials, local officials, county officials are in conversations with people who are producing products that have PFAS chemicals tied to them. But that's definitely something I can ask to see if they're exchanging communication or if they're just, letting each other know about concerns and issues. But that's a great question, Ellen. Thank you for that. And I see a question from Annabelle. The Clyburn competition. Yes, we actually do uh have a reporter, David Moreno. He covers arts and culture, and he's been following the Clyburn competition and will continue to do so. That's one of his main focuses right now. So if you go to our website and you look up Clyburn, you will definitely find a lot of coverage on that, and I can let him know that you're interested in seeing more come out of that.
So if people are interested in different topics, so your website has the topics and you can click on, this is what I want feeds on.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So if you go to our website, there's a drop down section to the very left side of the homepage, and under news topics, it shows everything we cover. So government, education, business, arts and culture, environment, things like that. And of course, if you have any questions about where to find what on our website, you can always ask us as well.
John just posted it, for the Clyburn, the link to that. Um, I was gonna say, if I'm not stepping on anybody's toes, there was we take the Dallas Morning News too, and there was a story this morning about a big virtual power plants, and how there's a company that's hoping to move into this market. Virtual power plants, they're basically like microgrids to try to stabilize the electric grid by decentralizing it into smaller nodes. And to me, it makes a lot of sense. Either that or start communicating with and making arrangements to use energy from Louisiana and New Mexico. They have plenty because they're tied to the national grid, and we are all by ourselves. Anyway, again, something to look into, that they're calling them VPP, for virtual power plants. What's the technology, what it involves? Will it make a difference to our, I don't know, they're not talking about the cost, but I don't know if ERCOT would be happy with decentralization.
Yeah, thank you
Sound
for
like it.
yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of talk in the Dallas Fort Worth area about how we're going to supply this demand for energy. And I think it's because it stems from a lot of people saying that ERCOT may not it may not have the bandwidth to provide all the energy and the demand that comes from it, out of this region. So I think that's why we're seeing more talk about these various sources of energy. And that is definitely an interesting issue and something we would also be happy to follow up on, because it also kind of ties in this issue of all these data centers that we have that are coming to Dallas and Fort Worth, and they require so much energy and electricity, and they use up so much water. So yeah, that's definitely something we can look into and report on as well.
Yes.
Mhm.
So we need you. We're so glad you're here.
Of course,
And
yeah, thank you.
yeah, there's never a shortage of topics to write about.
Yes.
Um,
Oh,
tell us something that you did recently that was interesting. That maybe, because I mean, I assume your job is very interesting to begin with, but was there anything unusual? Do you do a lot of animal stories, like a dog extricated from a big hole in the ground, something like that? Is that also part of your beat?
Yeah, so I definitely do try to report on our wildlife as much as I possibly can. I actually, one of the last wildlife stories that I reported on was regarding the aquarium that was shut down at Ridgemar Mall. I'm not sure if you all were familiar with that issue. I can't quite remember the name of the aquarium right now, but it was one of those interactive aquariums where people could come in and, look at the animals and, maybe feed, touch them if allowed, obviously with supervision from staff. But that aquarium was shut down. The aquarium petting zoo was shut down because there was a lot of safety concerns regarding the animals. Some of them were dying. They were placed in these enclosures that were just, quite suffering and suffocating for them. So it was a shock to see something like that happening in Fort Worth, but at the same time, it also doesn't come as a surprise because a lot of these mall aquariums or petting zoos are known for, animals shouldn't be in habitats such as those. That's not natural and that's not healthy for them. So that was a really big thing, and it also sparked national interest as well because they not only had a location in Fort Worth, but they had locations throughout the country. I think they had one in Colorado, Las Vegas. You can fact check me on that. I can't quite remember at the moment, but yes, that was definitely one of those one of those stories where breaking news and the environment came and met each other.
I missed that one completely. Did anybody have any questions regarding that?
What are the main issues that you see for the environment in Arlington?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
The top issues for Arlington in the environmental area.
I would definitely say for Arlington specifically, it's oil and gas and environmental justice. Um, I would, and I say that because there are, based on a lot of people that I've spoken to in Arlington, there are a lot of underserved areas in there, and it's because there are a lot of, developers coming in and they're moving so close to people's homes, and it's affecting their quality their quality of life and health. So I think the topic of energy is what's most prominent in Arlington as it relates to the environment. That's specifically where I see the most issues, environmental issues.
We are nearing build out of the 99 square miles of within Arlington city limits. Um, we have less than 2% undeveloped land. And another probable avenue to explore would be land use. Why do we keep taking virgin prairies and wooded lots to put up new housing, which we need, granted, but why don't we just redo or retrofit a previously built place like an old mall that has closed down? All cities are going through that, but I think especially Arlington, Mansfield and other cities can expand, and they've been taking over. What do you call that? When they just annexing nearby cities and not even cities, unincorporated land. Arlington is totally surrounded by already formed communities, so we cannot do that. We are so landlocked, and given that, let's just rebuild. We tear down buildings all the time, but then they kind of sit there. And they claim that it's because of the creeks. We have so many creeks, and the creeks tend to flood, and then you're building on the floodplain. And that's the reason so many buildings are having to come down. So it gets very complicated, but basically it also limits our potential growth of population because we can only accommodate so many residents. It's really a conundrum, and I haven't heard anybody come out and give a good idea for how to build palatable and affordable housing to accommodate the residents we already have in places that are already they have already been destroyed because they're not, um, they have been built on already.
Nicole,
Yeah.
do you report on the homeless in the parks? Because we see them all the time. There's encampments and just the other day, we were doing bluebird monitoring in Randall Mill and ran across the homeless. I think it's one or two people, but they are in the Village Creek and everywhere else. Is anybody doing anything for that?
Yes, yeah. So I have reported a little bit on homeless encampments and particularly what Fort Worth is doing about that. I know that they were able to expand their staff that helps with picking up litter, trash, and debris in public spaces. I do think funding is a lot of where the resource, the resources they need, it directly depends on funding. So that's also just a lot of what we're seeing happening at the city level. It's just sometimes it's a lack of funding, of course, according to what they've told me. And also our growth reporter, business and growth reporter, Eric, he also reports a little bit on growth and what's happening in the city, Metroplex issues. So that's also something we can talk about and where growth and environment intersect as well.
Are you all aware of uh, I think starts with the police department. It's a program called HART, HEART, but it's a unit of cops that go out. They have the authority to remove the homeless encampments, but then there are social work department that comes in from the police department, but they help rehome or redirect the individuals to try to keep them from relocating in those spots. Are y'all familiar with that program? And it works with the community court system and some other collaborative groups.
Yeah, so I think if there's anyone at the Fort Worth Port that is familiar with that, it would probably be our government accountability reporters, Cecil and Drew. But I can definitely ask them about that and see if they've done some reporting on that.
Ask them to check with the East Arlington Police Station because that's the home office of that unit. But they're doing
Okay.
some really good things. They completely clean up and clear away these, very elaborate encampments. And they recently showed pictures at an East Arlington renewal meeting, which, by the way, you might want to attend first Thursday of every month at the East Arlington Police Station. But they showed pictures of these encampments before that looked elaborate. They had stairways and chimneys and fireplaces, and that the police had the authority to make them leave, and code enforcement cleaned them up, and the social work components came in and looked at helping those guys go somewhere besides setting up another camp. It was real interesting.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you so much for that, Ellen. I see Ranjana, you have your hand raised. Is there something you'd like to ask?
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. I have been watching the entertainment district expand in Arlington over the years, and I worry about, and I'm very curious about the environmental footprint of having these stadiums, the tens of thousands of tourists, everything from waste, plastic, miles driven, air pollution, congestion, noise. And I'm wondering if that's ever been of interest to look at the kind of environmental toll that takes in a city like Arlington. And I do remember reading somewhere that that new stadium, the AT&T Stadium, was the least green stadium in the NFL, even though it's maybe the newest one. Um, and it's pretty big too. So I'm just wondering if anybody has thought about looking into those impacts.
Yeah, yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Ranjana. Yeah, so at KRA they have James Hartley, who you may know, Ranjana. He focuses specifically on Arlington and government accountability in that part of Tarrant County. And him and I have definitely spoken about talking and reporting on the the growing entertainment district in Arlington, and not only how it affects the environment, but really every aspect of life in Arlington. So that is definitely something we want to do, and it is in the ether, and I'm sure we'll have a big project out of it. But we definitely understand the pertinence that comes uh, with reporting on the entertainment district in Arlington.
Mhm. Good luck with that. Uh,
Yeah, we in the parks think the entertainment district is a money generator. Does anybody know that whether it's a money loser or a money generator, it doesn't seem to help our budget out whenever they have to cut the budget. It's sort of like, well, doesn't the entertainment district generate a lot of extra money?
I think the hotel guys get the money and the city has to pay the bill.
Oh, anyway, I, I haven't read anything good on how that works. When do we just get the
I don't
entertainment?
know, but I see your point, Dick. Um, they say it's a big money maker, but the money they're thinking about are hotel, restaurants are getting a lot more business. Yeah, there's some kind of hotel tax that's supposed to go to the city, but I don't know how much it is compared to the cost of cleaning up all that stuff and maintaining all the environmental stuff and the police surveillance on, I don't mean that the sports guys probably pay some of the cost of the extra cops and the extra fire and rescue people, but I think it's a good point that it's not just a cut and dried moneymaker.
it will be when FIFA gets here in
I'm sorry.
2036. Next year, it
Oh,
will.
oh, yeah,
it
yeah,
will
yeah.
be-
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll just see money flying all around.
Yeah, I'm glad you actually mentioned that because our reporter James Hartley, he works with KERA, but KERA is our we're partnered with them as news organizations. He is closely following what is going on in Arlington as we near the FIFA World Cup. So I'm sure he's going to be doing much more coverage, and I can also relay a lot of these questions you all have to him, and I'm sure he would definitely appreciate that input and produce stories out of it.
Thank you, Nicole.
Yes, of course. Thank you all so much.
Do you ever get death threats or anything? Are you worried about your safety? I would
No.
think this is kind of a hostile environment, though, for some of the news that you give us.
Yeah, I can definitely see the fear of being a journalist in a community such as this, but and my I get the occasional hate mail or, negative comments or feedback, but that's something that I think every journalist can say they've experienced. So, yeah.
I hope you keep that attitude. Um, it's been an hour, and it's flown by. But is there anything, any way we in the activist, trying to be activist, nonprofit, environmental world, something we can help you with?
I would definitely say just whenever there's something that you'd like to talk about, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I always do my best with making time to attend events, anything that might be going on, any forums, community meetings, any gatherings of any sort. We're always happy to know about that. So, and I think Dick mentioned if anyone wanted to be added to the mailing list, and I think I may have already been added through you, Grace,
Yeah.
but yeah, just whenever you all have any updates on any kind of issue, please feel free to reach out to me and we can definitely arrange a time to talk.
Thanks very much. If there's
Do you have any questions for us?
just ask questions, send them to Nicole. She'll probably answer them since we now have her contact information. So, thank you for presenting tonight, and we will have the recording of this presentation up on our YouTube site. So, a couple of days. So, thanks again.
Yes, of course. Thank you
Let's
for
keep in
Thank
touch.
you.
Thank
Yes.
you too, John.
Yes, thank you for having us.
again, let's keep in touch. I think this is a good conversation to have every once in a while
Yeah.
and see what you are looking at and what we are feeling. And believe me, we feel a lot.
Yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
thank you.
Okay, thank you
Appreciate
so much. You'll have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.